Inexcusable. Every single time the New York Metropolitans come out here and drop a game where they find themselves up by 5 runs and lose said ball game, let alone for the second time in the past week span, it is nothing short of inexcusable. How you doing, Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest Metropolitan postgame segment as they drop Game 3 of a 4-game set there, a game that they firmly had once again in their grasp, this time by a final score of 7-5. In tonight's show, we're going to break down everything that transpired inning by inning, as we always do. Christian Scott making his long-awaited, highly anticipated return to the Mets rotation. How would he fare in this matchup against the Nationals team? Newsflash, it was a lot of the Christian Scott that you'd expect. Pounding the zone, beyond effective, but of course, in typical Christian Scott fashion in his young career, has to hang at least one pitch for a home run before he is out of said ball game. Jake Diekman has once again proved why he's not a capable reliever for this Metropolitan bullpen, which is saying a lot considering just how low that bar is for a depleted Mets pen now that has costed them plenty games this season and will continue to do so until changes happen and fast. Edwin Diaz, as soon as he still can return to said bullpen, is July 6th. I want to see everyone's initial reactions here in the live show and the live chat. As always, the comments down below for people on replay, same applies. If you're watching this on Twitter, hit that like, that follow button, that retweet button. Greatly appreciate it. But no, as always, I will only be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube. So head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Help us get a 30K subs for our next short-term goal. Thank you all so much in advance for doing so. Shout out to our amazing sponsors at MLB, the best MLB fantasy game out there. Check them out. Link in the description down below. As always, a sign for free today, along with BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out as well down below. We'll talk about them a bit later, folks. But I do want to take a moment and not have this be a completely hot-headed Wardy segment where I'm just ranting the entire show saying how god-awful Jay Diekman is. And don't worry, we're certainly going to get there to a degree, but I also want to highlight some very exciting news, some promising news in regards to Kodai Senga, who himself made a very long-awaited, very highly anticipated rehab start there with the Brooklyn Cyclones. How did Kodai look? When is he going to return to this Mets rotation? And what is David Stearns going to do for this rotation and bullpen the coming weeks as we inch oh so closer to the MLB traded line? That and more is what we'll find ourselves breaking down, folks, as always, as we're going to take a look at the highlights as we have for each and every one of you right here, right now. We're going to take a look at the pitching again, and my man Isaac Rothman, my fantastic nightly pitching contributor on the channel. Check him out on Twitter at ISAACGROFFMAN for all your Mets pitching needs on the information front, especially when it comes to Christian Scott. He had a fantastic thread he dropped late last night on everything you need to know about Scott heading into this start, and we're going to break down Christian Scott, what worked for him today, what didn't, everything you guys need to know there, including some unfortunate news there on the bullpen, headlined by the schmuck that is Jake Diekman. Then on the hitting end, we'll talk about the extra base hits, but the Mets could amount to much more than that. What can we expect from this team in the series finale in DC against these Nationals? All that is what we're going to be breaking down here shortly, folks. Again, thank you all so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate this. Kodai Senga with a brilliant first rehab outing that I'm very excited to get into here in a second, folks. So let's start with that, shall we? And let's start with Mr. Kodai Senga, because again, for the first time in forever, after having multiple setbacks with different types of ailments, after initially being on the IL heading into the season, Kodai Senga again made his long-awaited, highly anticipated Brooklyn Cyclones rehab start where he would find himself pitching at least 40 pitches, no more, no less, right around in that range. And Kodai Senga's final line today was 2.2 scoreless innings, no hits, no earned runs, no walks, no nothing. The only batter that got on base was via an error, so to say Kodai Senga had a very sharp first time back out there is an understatement. Fastball was sitting, touching 97, even 98 there. We saw beautiful stuff working with the cutter. Nice swing and miss with the ghost fork where he had some strikeouts as well. Kodai Senga is looking locked and loaded and looking like the Kodai of old and ready to return this Mets rotation when he is fully ramped up and ready to go. To everybody watching live on a replay, let me know your initial reactions to the news that Kodai Senga had himself nothing short of a brilliant first rehab start. The Mets ace, our Mr. Ghost Fork himself, and Senga is looking to make quite the impact for the Mets here as we get to the second half of the season. And as Carlos Mendoza did mention a week and a half or so ago himself, do not expect Kodai Senga back before the All-Star break. So post All-Star break, we should expect Senga back. By that point, he'll already have extensive rehab in. So yes, we are beyond excited to see Senga back in this rotation, hopefully sooner rather than later. And with this Mets team again looking like they're going to stay afloat in this wild card race, barring any changes, knocking on wood obviously. Looking like they're going to both buy and sell at the trade deadline, as Mike Puma actually stated today that teams have started calling David Stearns and the Mets about their availability among starting pitchers. The Mets have a lot of key decisions, and a lot of big decisions, rather, to evaluate on that front from this point up until the trade deadline around July 29th. But with expendable arms there on rental contracts among guys like Sean Manaea, headline Luis Severino, who we don't want to see dealt, but is possible still, and then, of course, more controllable guys like David Pearson, Tyler McGill, it's safe to say the Mets will likely part with an arm or two by the deadline, with the resurgence and the return of a Kodai Senga. Of course, Kristen Scott that we saw today pitched strong, except for that hanger he gave up before he wrapped up this ball game. Jose Butto utilizing lawn relief, in which he pitched 2 squirrels yesterday. The Mets have arm options, and because of that reason, they will be evaluating all buying and selling by the deadline. But rest assured, having Kodai Senga back in this rotation means it's a good problem to have here if you're the Metsies. Vince, everybody, there was some news about a man in AAA Syracuse who no longer is in the Mets organization, and that is the fellow Splash Bro brother himself. Yes, not Clay in Dallas, but we are talking about a man that could, for all we know, land with the Texas Rangers, whoever he wants to land with. Trayce Thompson, Clay's brother, has been released by the Mets today. Trayce, who of course has been having a very successful year in Syracuse, not so much with the contact hitting, but the home runs have been there. Of course, the gap-to-gap ability has been there. And again, a guy that we know can probably be given an opportunity to get some reps at the MLB level by a different ball club. Well, the Mets granted the release for Trayce Thompson today, and I wish him the absolute best in his future endeavors, especially after the Mets called up Ben Gamel. It was pretty obvious that them staying with a guy like Trayce Thompson at any point in the season to have him called up simply wasn't going to happen, because Drew Gilbert, our outfield prospect, our top one, will return mid-July from his hamstring tear. He's a guy that's expected to impact the Mets before the season is done as well, barring any significant changes. The Mets have depth in certain areas, and Trayce Thompson was on the outside looking in for a guy that simply couldn't hit too well contact-wise, even at the AAA level. While the pop has been there, it only means so much for a Mets team that has had plenty pop in their lineup for the past month and a half now. It has been far from a concern. Offense really has not been an issue at all with the Mets for the better half of the past month. Plus, it has been, of course, on the pitching end of things. And to add a little bit as well, Jose Iglesias, we saw, has been utilizing more of, again, a metal bat. And that was also implemented because of JD Davis. Why exactly is this? Jose Iglesias learned from JDM to get more power in his swing by utilizing a weighted metal bat that we would see pregame and stuff like that. And it's crazy because that transition in his warm-up, in his game every day, Jose Iglesias had a slugging percentage a little over 300. Post, he's in the 4 to 5 range, so he's clearly been having a lot more success. And again, JD Martinez is once again proving why this man needs a blank check as soon as he retires, be the Mets every single day hitting coach, and why Eric Chavez and Danny Barnes continue to have us head scratching. Why are these guys here under payroll when they do such little in the hitting coach, the co-hitting coach position? I digress on that front, but just some food for thought, if you will. Skeens Friday. Yep, we got Skeens, we got Jones, and we got Keller this weekend. It is murderer's row for the Mets facing that three-headed monster of a rotation in Pittsburgh this weekend. So all the more reason why they cannot blow things tomorrow. Take this series against the Nats, win 3 out of 4, because there's a great reality that you're not going to hit much of a lick against these Pittsburgh Pirates starters. So again, you might see a continuation. The Mets really not doing much until they get to those bullpens, and it might be too little too late depending on the starting pitching outings that we find ourselves getting. AZ with the $5 haul. Thank you so much, AZ. He says Heads needs to roll in this bullpen, especially Diekman. He's been absolutely useless and a trash can. Jake Diekman has been useless, and we're going to get to that shortly, folks. Also, one final thing, please make sure you hold me to it, everybody. Make sure that before we wrap up the live show, I break down the latest on the prospect end. If there's any key prospect outings that we saw yesterday or today, I want to make sure that I highlight them for all you. Yesterday, when my man James Schiano, the Mets Stuff podcast, he was my co-host for last night's postgame show. Check it out if you haven't already. We wrapped up our discussion by breaking down the Mets' top 6 prospects in the top 100, along with that we saw Mr. Brandon Sproat especially cracking the top 100, and why Mets fans should be very ecstatic about the young flamethrower right-hander and what he has in the future for the Mets as potentially ace caliber starter in their rotation at some point over the next calendar year. Scott Greenwald, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Christian Scott gives a 5-run lead against a terrible offensive team. Has to be better. Plain and simple. Thoughts? I thought Christian Scott, truthfully, was very sharp today, but Christian Scott gave up a hanger at a bad time. And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, I understood you want to give as much length to Scott as possible with how depleted this bullpen is. It was just unlucky more than anything. I think Christian Scott was overall fine today. I wouldn't say he was overly dominant, but he definitely held his own in this matchup. And I would say that, yes, that home run definitely sucks, but there were still promising things that came out of this start by Scott today. And again, still has a lot more to work on. He needs to work on getting that swing and miss because MLB hitters are reading him well. That fastball as well, while it tunnels and it's great and looks like a rising heater to many, while it sits, 94, 95. Scott, of course, did get barreled hard a little bit today, gave up those 6 hits, gave up that bomb to Garcia, who had 2 on the day. Unfortunate, but again, I'm not going to sit here and give a lot of flack to Christian Scott, who's still getting his footing down at the MLB level. I like what I saw from him today, and at the end of the day, Christian Scott is still not the reason why the Mets lost this ball game. The bullpen is. It's as simple as that. Christian Scott didn't have the ball game tied when he exited said ball game. No, he gave up those 4 earned runs that we saw thanks to that bomb by Garcia and then the bullpen from there. So we'll get into this. Again, people calling Scott a bum are the biggest casuals. All you fans that feel that way, that's fine. But when Christian Scott continues to blossom and becomes one of the best starters in this Mets rotation, when that happens, I don't want to hear anything from you guys especially. You guys can continue to be the haters you want. I'm going to be the not only internal optimist, but a rational fan for a young right-hander who's still getting himself acclimated at the MLB level. First start in the bigs and how long too. But yes, he's a bum. Trade him. He's nonsense. All this stuff. He's terrible. Again, you guys are killing me. You really are. Yes, I know. He definitely carried a lot in the zone that we saw there. Christian Scott, something that I appreciate a lot about his game, but something that we will also headline this one. Why it can at times be frustrating is he doesn't walk a lot of guys. He walked 2 today, but he had one of the lowest walk rates in all of baseball, not named Paul Skeens at the minor league level before his call-up this season. And Scott absolutely pounds the zone. The problem when you pound the zone the way that Scott does, you got to make sure that you're getting the swing and miss that you're getting. And for Christian Scott, he wasn't getting the swing and miss as much or nearly as effective as what he'd probably hoped today, which went in hand, again, with the 6 hits he gave up, and ultimately that bomb would certainly ate him alive, and the Mets in this one. A Jake Diekman DFA. We're going to talk about Jake Diekman plenty in this one, Ryan, for sure. We're going to talk about why this is one of those games where further validates why Jake Diekman should not be a part of this bullpen, even with how depleted it is. I don't care if it's Josh Walker. I don't care if it's Eric Orzi. There are multiple options that I would personally consider in AAA over what Jake Diekman is giving you, which is the amount of walks as many innings pitched right now and giving up the long ball at a ridiculous rate, it appears. So let's break down this ball game inning by inning, folks. Long overdue. Thank you all so much, everybody, for chiming in live on a replay. Continue to smash a like and subscribe button for your boy. Greatly appreciate it. And help us get a 50, then 100 likes in the live show on YouTube whenever we get a chance. And thank you so much in advance for doing so. But it starts off here in the first that we see for the Metsies. They get nothing there. And for the Nationals, they get nothing as well. James Wood with a walk, and he would be the killer for the Mets in this one. But that's all she wrote. Christian Scott works a clean first inning. Nothing from the Mets there in the Nationals in the second. A 1-2-3 second there for Christian Scott. And the third, we would see Tyrone Taylor, after review, would have a fair ball of a home run. It's out of here to left. A high flyer to left makes it a 1-0 Metropolitan lead with Tyrone Taylor ripping his 5th home run this season. Mets are up by a run here. Afterwards, and again, mind you, entering tonight's game, we had JD Martinez back in the starting lineup after a day out with a sore ankle that we saw. He, of course, was productive today, that we will get into shortly, even though I was frustrated with his final at-bat or so. Ben Gamble got the start in the outfield as well, with Harrison Bader not available, at least in the lineup, after being banged up, hitting the wall yesterday and exiting the game early. And that couldn't have came at a better time, because Brandon Nimmo coming in the ball game was the best thing to happen to the Mets, and their, again, extra inning victory yesterday. This is a game that felt like it was going to go to extras, but the Nationals made sure that didn't happen this time. And as we got there to the the top of the fourth, JD Martinez rips his 14th double of the season, and Marky Vientos drives him in with his 11th home run of the season. Mark Vientos now, folks, with another scorching dead center home run, ridiculous velo off the bat. We are now entering uncharted territory with Mark Vientos, where this is not a fluke. This is consistent. Now you're looking at one of the better sluggers in all Major League Baseball, where if he can just be, again, competent at the hot corner, if he can be just an average defender at third base, like peak in his career, average third base defender, that will be more than fine. Mark Vientos' offense has been so unbelievably tremendous and so consistent now that this is not a fluke story. This is not a Brett Beatty, little miracle run for a week where he hits a couple bombs and he's non-existent. No, this is Mark Vientos, who's not only here to stay, but is one of the most important players now in this Mets lineup. Yes, you heard that correctly. Mark Vientos is playing at a rate as one of the best third basemen in all the National League right now. Even with how much of a negative that he has been at times with his defense, because he has been far from proficient in that area. We know that he has a hiccup in the hot corner on average every other game right now, but he hasn't allowed it to cost the Mets too much because his offense has made up for it and then some. Mark Vientos, I definitely want to know everyone's thoughts on Marky V's great run he's had so far this season in the live chat. In the comments down below, same applies. What a tremendous season he has had thus far and is far from over. The Mets take a 3-0 lead there with that dead center 2-run bomb. As we then head there to the bottom of the fourth, Christian Scott gets into a little bit of a jam, but nothing crazy. Gives up a 2-out double to Jesse Winker, his 13th of the year there for Wink. That's all she wrote there. Christian Scott is cruising here for the most part. As we then get on to the top of the fifth inning, we would see with 2 outs, Ben Gamble gets his first Metropolitan hit in today's start, this being a double, his first of the season. You know who drives him in? Francisco Lindor. Shout out to the Mets here again on the offensive end. Far from having a lot of gripes in that regard. Mark Vientos is not eligible for Rookie of the Year. I'm pretty sure, Carlos, because of the games he played last year. Don't quote me on that, but I'm like 90% sure he's not eligible because of that reason. Regardless, everybody, we saw there with last inning, JD Martinez with the double. Then he got the home run, of course, there that we saw by Mr. Mark Vientos. Now you enter an inning later, Ben Gamble with the double, and Francisco slams Cisco bombs, makes it a 5-0 ball game, his 15th home run this season. Lindor with 2 home runs and as many games for the Mets as they are up now 5-0. You're feeling damn confident the Mets are going to win this ball game. Shame on us for feeling that way. We're going to talk about Ty Adcock too. We will get into that a little bit. He, of course, gave up the lawn ball to Garcia in this matchup. However, I do like Adcock's arsenal quite a bit. Why is being released called being DFA'd? Said someone in the chat. They may have deleted it now, so I'm not sure if they still have that question or not. But if you're designated for assignment, that is what it means to be cut, because then you are available usually in the waiver wire where any team can pick you up throughout a period of time before you were, say, sent outright to AAA, or depending on your contract status, obviously you can be outright released should you wish. That we have seen with guys in many years on the Mets. Getting on to the bottom of the fifth here, again, we see Christian Scott trying to just get out of this jam. First, he gives up a walk to Garcia. Then Joey Meneses rips a single. Then we see Vargas make it a 4-run ball game with an RBI single. We see Adermo Vargas finally being productive and not being a help for the Mets in this series, because he was god-awful at the plate the first 2 games of this matchup. Not even joking when I tell you that. It couldn't be more accurate than that. Jacob Young thankfully grounds into a double play. He's been killing the Mets this series and the season thus far. And CJ Abrams strikes out. So again, big inning there for Christian Scott. Might be his last one, and he works out of that jam unscathed. Christian Scott, again, was through 5 innings, very strong, allowed that 1 earned run, I should mention if I didn't say it already, but he overall handled his own quite well. And as the Mets go down in order there that we see in the 6th, and the bottom of the 6th, this is where everything goes wrong. After 1 out, James Wood gets on via a single. Jesse Winker gets a single. Then with 2 outs, we see Luis Garcia Jr. rips on a sweeper. That is his 8th home run of the year. It's a 1-run ball game. 5-4 Nationals down by simply 1 run. And that does it for Christian Scott as Adam Ottavino comes in to get a fly out on Joey Meneses to end the inning with the Mets still up a run. We then head to the top of the 7th where the Mets unfortunately have nothing to show on the offensive end as former Met now foe Jacob Barnes, who I absolutely despise and still do, has himself a clean 1-2-3 inning of work, including great defense there by Jacob Young for the final out. We then get to the bottom of the 7th, and as we see here, unfortunately, again, after 2 outs, Adam Ottavino is taken out of this ball game. Jake Diekman just needs 1 fucking out, everybody. Just 1 out. I apologize for the profanity, earmuffs, kiddos, but it's times like this that drive me nuts, because I understand why Carlos Mendoza pulled Adam Ottavino here. Adam is a guy that usually don't want working more than 3 outs. And for anyone here that says, oh, Mendoza was so silly to pull Ottavino, you guys are the same fans that don't even want Adam Ottavino in this bullpen. So you have to make up your mind. I think most of us can agree we don't love the prospect of Adam Ottavino and Jake Diekman instead pen right now whatsoever. But we're depleted. These guys are major league caliber arms, or at least they have been, and they're going to be in the pen for the time being, even though Diekman needs to be out of here yesterday, and we will get to that a little bit here shortly. But with 2 outs in this situation, I get why you're, of course, going to take Adam Ottavino there. And, of course, it's CJ Abrams. It's a lefty-lefty matchup. All Jake Diekman needs to do is not be Jake Diekman. The problem, he's Jake effing Diekman, and he walks everyone and their mother. Jake Diekman has one of the highest walk rates per 9 among all eligible relievers in Major League Baseball since arriving in the league a decade or so ago. Every single year, Jake Diekman has consistently been god-awful on the walks. It went down quite a bit that we saw when he was at the Tampa Bay Rays because they had him change up, his mix entirely, but now he's become more the Jake Diekman that we saw a sliver with the White Sox, and then, he was with Boston. He was with everyone, I feel like Jake Diekman's been with, and unfortunately for the Mets here, they got a terrible Jake Diekman today, because he walks CJ Abrams. Then we see, of course, Lane Thomas rips his 9th double of the season. Mets killer ties the ball game 5-5 in said matchup, and then James Wood rips his first RBI of his career. A single makes it a 6-5 ball game, and that right there, folks, is said ball game. Absolutely ridiculous stuff there for Mr. Jake Diekman. Again, he's giving up consistent hitting. He's letting guys get on base. Lefty-lefty matchup. If you're going to be so useless to not get one single lefty out, mind you, the most frustrating aspect of this all, and let me know if you guys agree or disagree. Jake Diekman was up in the count 0-2 on these guys. Up 0-2 and allowed the walk and allowed the single. And allow this, there's nothing to justify this whatsoever. You're up 5-0. We can sit here and gripe about Kristen Scott not giving us a better start than what he did today, but he was just one bad pitch removed from having a sharp start. It's bullpen outings where you need one measly out to get out of the inning, and Jake Diekman simply cannot do that for you. Give me one justified reason outside of his contract and outside of Brooks Raley being out for the season, never going to pitch for the Mets again more than likely, to justify why Jake Diekman should be in this bullpen. With how depleted this Mets team is, there are still internal options to consider. I definitely say you bark up the tree again of Josh Walker. If you're saying Josh Walker isn't great, that might be true, but enlighten me on how much better Jake Diekman is, right? Eric Orsi, he should be considered. He might not be a lefty, but you know what? The bar's so low right now that we will take anything that we can get at the moment. And Jake Diekman helped really play a hand in the loss here. What happened to Robert Gazelman? That's a good question. Robert Gazelman absolutely watched. The last time I saw Robert, I'm pretty sure he was in the Nationals organization in AAA. I remember him in spring training this year too, Mr. Gazelman. He went over to the KBO for a bit, I think, if not the MPB, and then he came back. Him and Noah Syndergaard, former, roommates, obviously. They used to live together when they were teammates with the Mets, both washed up, and both no longer MLB caliber arms. It's a pity Brooks Raley got hurt. Yes, it is. Raley getting hurt hurts this Mets team a lot. And when you also get someone like Danny Young, who was brilliant early, but now Danny Young has really been humbled down a bit, and there's a reason why Danny Young isn't a consistent MLB reliever. That's another gut punch too. So the Mets don't have great in-house options on southpaw front. And I would even argue that we're at the point now, similar to Jose Buto, just start bringing up more starting pitchers that you want to make relievers right now. If these are guys that you expect to be more relievers, I would even make the argument to put Joey Fuego in this bullpen right now. Absolutely. Yes, he might not have much of an arsenal, but that plays a lot more, especially as a reliever. That's what it's known for. Joey Lucchesi is never going to be a mainstay MLB starter again, more than likely, because of his arsenal and because of what you're getting. You have a fastball that isn't lively. You have the curve that we love, but you don't have a lot else. Joey Fuego in a 1 to 2 inning sample size, I think, could be far more effective than what you would get with him stretched as a starter right now, which is very against the Philadelphia Phillies out of all teams. But point stands, you have internal options should you go out of your way to seek them. And for the Mets and David Stearns, they need to be doing exactly that. You got to worry. Even with a bad bullpen, I can't even take a Diekman. He's uncompetitive. He didn't throw one competitive pitch that we saw. Up 0-2, and it's like, okay, we're not going to do anything else whatsoever. Fuji will walk the entire lineup also. That might be true, Lucas, but let's get there first. Let's get Fujinami continue to have a fantastic time in rehab, in which he has been pitched beautifully yesterday that we saw for the Rumble Ponies. 8 pitches, all all strikes, 98 on the gun, a couple strikeouts. He looked great. Bryce Montez Dioka, same applies with him as well. Guys that, again, might struggle with the walks, but we'll worry about that when we get there. I have confidence in the Mets trying to get the best out of some of these relievers internally right now. But in the case of Jake Diekman, this has been always his story. This is not about, okay, getting the best out of Jake Diekman right now. This is, okay, even getting the best out of Jake Diekman, how much better is it going to be than what it currently is? It's hard to envision the Mets getting what the Tampa Bay Rays got out of Jake Diekman here with the Mets. I just don't see it happening. The Mets go on to, again, lose by a final score of 7-5, everybody. Ty Adcock would come in this ball game, of course, and he would give up a lawn ball, a solo shot there that we would see to Mr. Garcia for his second home run of the game. But before that, though, we saw with 2 outs, Brandon Nimmo got on via walk and stole his 7th back of the year. And then JD Martinez was called out on strikes. That one stung because that was an at-bat where JD was able, again, to just put the ball in play. The Mets tie up this ball game 6-6. That's why that final at-bat really frustrated me. I love the double by JD early, but that's one that we would have loved to have come back. And again, we saw it become a 7-5 ball game. That's the nail in the coffin, everybody. And the Mets go down in order with Alonso flying out, Vientos grounding out, and Torrens flying out to end said ball game. Mets go on to lose by a final score of 7-5. And as we continue to break down our frustrations, I have a lot to say here on the bullpen, Christian Scott, and this offense, everybody. But before I do, let's take a quick transition to hear from our amazing sponsor on the channel, and one that you certainly need to get involved with today in case you haven't already, because again, we have the best MLB fantasy game out there, folks, with our amazing friends at Sorare MLB. So listen up.
It's heating up this July on Sorare MLB, where the thrill of the chase meets the prospect of big rewards. Lock in and go yard, collecting cards and playing your way to the top. Get things right and you'll be calling your shot at a share of over $225K in total cash prizes and more. Join for free. Build your winning roster, watch your players perform, and improve your strategy each week for a shot at being crowned a champion. Sign up and enter now. July is for baseball.
Shout out, as always, to our great friends at Sorare MLB, everybody. And again, listen up. It is July. So what does that mean, folks? It is baseball time. This month, we've got thrilling gameplay rules, including extra points for pitching categories, adding a new level of strategy to your game. As many of you guys know, of course, can sign up today for free, but you can play this game, of course, with real dollars to either spend to build your team and the Sorare MLB marketplace with unique virtual MLB cards, and how these cards do well is based on how players perform in real life. So as you see, I'm entered in 3 tournaments. You can enter tournaments weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and depending on how you do in said tournaments, you can win cash prizes, hundreds if not thousands of dollars, upgraded cards to make your fantasy team better than what it currently is, along with a boatload of other different things. And we've given away Mets tickets in the past, a bunch of other awesome giveaways. We just did a fantastic MLB All-Star giveaway as well to some lucky winners. And right now, plus get ready for our special competition during the MLB All-Star events that we're doing. It's your chance to shine and enjoy the Midsummer Classic while competing against the best. Finally, dive into the July Chase where the first place winner can take home up to $15,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, folks. So if you guys go out of your way and you enter the July Chase of tournaments, which again, you can enter here as well, as we see here. Oh, I already have my lineups entered there. I want to show you guys the competitions here for the July Chase in 1 second. Where is the chase? I might have already passed. If I did, that's all on me. No worries whatsoever, folks. But regardless, if you enter the July Chase today, especially, you guys are going to have a great chance. Again, winner, the best guy that has the best team in said tournament, is going to win $15,000. So do not miss out on your chance to manage your dream team, along with taking in a bag of dollars and doing so. And as you guys and gals can see here with the rosters I'm currently repping, I have 3 at the moment. I'm going to show you the one that's doing the best currently, and that is with 118 points. I got George Kirby with 21, Josh Hader with 18, Josh Naylor with 10, Gunnar with 2. He better be better, my Mr. All-Star starter. Same with Adley. Brandon Nimmo with 27, Jeremy Pena with 37. He's been balling out. Pena and Hader I got in this past week's tournaments that I performed. And funny enough, I got Hader after the Mets lost the Astros series. Funny enough, it's just bizarre timing. It's like, of course that happened. We also have some other awesome teams too, with Zach Wheeler, Tyler Glasnow, Edwin Diaz once he's healthy, Logan Gilbert, Francisco Eltrell Alvarez, among others. So again, folks, for all your fantasy needs, check out our great friends of Sorare MLB today with the link in the description of the live show. Again, at your earliest convenience. Sign up today for free, or of course, get involved on the money front. And thank you all so much in advance for doing so with our great friends at Sorare MLB. But hop back in this one. How you doing, Dave? Happy to have you doing here? Let's see, everybody. I want to see how you guys are feeling. Can't win every game, but you can't lose with 5-run leads. Better words could not have been said, Alan. You're 100% right. Yes, you're not going to win every game. We know that, but the Mets cannot. There is nothing to ever justify dropping a game like this where you have this series victory, 3 straight in DC in your grasp, and you allow a 5-run lead to now become completely blown, and it's gone. That's 2019 Mets vibes right there, if I've ever seen it, where you got some key runs and then you cough them up the way you do in the bullpen, plays a hand in said discussion. Wardy, if you had a choice between completely buying or selling at the deadline, which one would you choose? Do you believe in this core enough to trade some of the farm depth? That is a great question, and I'm conflicted because on the offensive end, yes, I do. I actually do believe in this Mets team enough to go on a run this year. Pitching end, no. So it would warrant the Mets to really go all in on buying for both bullpen reinforcements and starting pitching. And at that point, I'm kind of asking myself, is that enough to justify maybe hurting the farm the way we would? Here's the thing. I love David Stearns. I have a lot of confidence in David. And I think David Stearns is going to quickly show us Mets fans his ability to turn out AA savvy type moves that you see from the Braves every year at the deadline, where you're making some key impactful moves on both the offensive and pitching side of the ball that might not be the sexiest names, but they are guys that clearly make a difference. So because of those reasons and because of my Mets bias and I want to see them play entertaining baseball in October, yes, I would like to see them buy, but let me emphasize that me wanting them to buy is not me saying, I should say, wanting them to buy to a degree where they're giving up the entire farm. There are only certain guys I think are justified for that. And if you're going to give up said farm, it can't be for rentals. If you're going to give up top guys, it has to be for controllable talent. Jesus Luzardo, Garrett Crochet, just a couple of names to throw out there to give you guys an idea. Shooting for the stars, Luis Robert, of course, with his injury history and everything that entails. Those are guys that are justified good to go out of your way for. Otherwise, I can understand buying but not doing anything crazy, if that makes sense, right? I do love the idea of also selling all your short-term assets and just building the farm even more for next season. So it's kind of like, what do I care about more in the short term? I care about winning. But what do I care about more in the long term? I care about sustained winning. So it's a coin flip for me. But that's a fair question. And I think that's a good one for fellow Mets fans to discuss and break down here in the show together. Steve, thank you so much again for being a great member on the channel. Steven Kombartsky, thank you so much as always, Steve. Great follower here on the channel. How you doing, my man? Happy to have you in here, folks. But now, folks, let's get into the pitching report. Let's break down our biggest takeaways on Christian Scott and the rest of this bullpen. And no better man to do it with than my great friend. And you guys know very well, because he's been an awesome pitching contributor. He's going to be on the channel at some point, whether it's this season, in the offseason, what have you. You'll be seeing him at some point. And Isaac knows this. Isaac Groffman. Let's talk about Isaac and I's analysis on Christian Scott today. And a lot of the information that we're about to relay to you all, folks, is courtesy of Baseball Savant, among other website platforms. So in case you guys want to know, where do you get these numbers, Wardy? That is where you get most of those numbers. So just some food for thought for each and every one of you, especially if you're interested. We're also less than 40 likes away from 100 here in the show. So thank you all so much for that. Continue to smash that like and subscribe on, everybody. Thank you all so much in advance for doing so. But let's hop back into this one as we're going to break down the latest Christian Scott. Again, 5.2 innings of 6 hit, 4 earned run, 2 walk, 2 strikeout ball, 99 pitches, a 4.32 ERA on the year. His arsenal was as follows: 4-seam heater, 53% of the time. Sat 94, topped out 97 miles per hour. Splitty 18% of the time. Sat 85. Sweeper 17% of the time. That you just can't be hanging. 84 miles per hour. And that gyro slider at 12%. 87 miles per hour. First and foremost, one thing I do want to credit Christian Scott with, my man James Shiano headlined this earlier on Twitter too, and it's right. He was working beautifully on that fastball up and away and getting swing and miss on those lefty batters. I thought that was a great approach that Scott had in said ball game. Unfortunately for him, he just didn't have the end of the ball game that he was looking for. Last night, as we know, my man Isaac did post a fantastic pitching thread on Christian Scott. So again, check it out on his Twitter, as I mentioned earlier, folks. But Scott used his fastball more than usual tonight, 53% of the time, with an above average 63% zone percentage. He got a good amount of soft contact that we saw induced on it. And in Isaac's thread, he did note that Scott's fastball is so good despite its average velocity. Like Max Scherzer, for example, it's because of that great VAA, vertical approach angle, or the angle at which a pitch approaches the plate. So in simple terms, that we see there. A of course, 0 degrees, VAA, I should say, of 0 degrees means a pitch is perfectly flat, which would go over the catcher's head. A VAA of minus 90 degrees means it's perpendicular to the plate. And negative VAA means the ball slopes downward, while a positive VAA means it slopes upward. Elite VAA is between negative 3.71 degrees and negative 4.04 degrees, and Scott's fastball sits around negative 4.01. So it's in a very unique class, to say the least. Pitchers like Paul Sewald, Joe Ryan, and Alexis Diaz, Edwin Brother, just to name a few, excel with average velocity fastballs by having low VAA just like this, making the ball appear to rise and causing hitters to swing under it. Again, a deceiving rising fastball for Christian Scott, who again sits 94-95, topping out 97. Not the most overwhelming right-hander, but induces that swing and miss because of that deception with the VAA. He topped out 97.4 miles per hour on the gun today, the fastest pitch of his young MLB career that we saw, and he was elite with his extension that we saw. It looked at right around 100.4 miles per hour to the batter. Fantastic. 101.4, I should say. Scott threw his splitty today just 18% of the time tonight, compared to 10% his first 5 starts, so almost double the normal usage there. It gave him a legit weapon that we saw against those left-handed hitters to help induce those soft ground ball outs. His sweeper also looked really good with that 25% whiff rate and that 108 stuff. Plus, that pitch is key to his success. Just can't be hanging pitches. That's literally all it is. He hits the zone a lot. He hammers the strike zone. He doesn't like to walk guys. Because he hammers the strike zone, and because you're facing MLB caliber pitching, these guys are going to make you pay, even when you have quality pitches sometimes. And Scott overall was very strong tonight. One could even argue he was elite with his stuff overall. Just had that bad pitch and that unfortunate sequence there in the 6th inning. Other than that one pitch, you know, he throws the ball in the zone as much as he does. Home runs are inevitably going to happen. That's why Christian Scott has averaged at least 1 home run per game every single season this year at both the major league and the AAA level. Overall, great for Christian Scott. My man Isaac gave him a 7.5 out of 10 today. Me personally, I'm going to give Christian Scott a 6.5 out of 10 today, because even though he looked beautiful, still giving up a bomb like that, making it a 1-run ball game, it stings for a Mets team that they need, of course, to have sustained winning as much as humanly possible as they continue to push for that 3rd wild card spot. So Christian Scott, a very sharp start overall, a bad pitch, a bad 6th inning, but excluding that, a lot to like, a lot to work on from there, but a lot of the advanced information as I just broke down for you all. I hope you guys understood. And again, I love getting into these numbers too, which helps you again further evaluate this pitcher than beyond what you maybe already know with the eye test. So that's what you got there with Christian Scott. Adam Ottavino, of course, held his own. 3 up, 3 down. Jake Diekman, I digress. Jake Diekman, you know what, everybody? Let's see if this is updated already with Jake Diekman, because Jake Diekman drives me up an effing wall. Even if this isn't updated yet, it's okay. I can understand if Fangraphs might be delayed with this one, but Jake Diekman has simply not been doing the Mets any favors whatsoever this season. And when I tell you that Jake Diekman has been, in ways, a liability for the Mets, I'm not exaggerating. Entering today's outing, Jake Diekman was a negative WAR player at negative 0.3. We're talking a 4.10 ERA, a 3.66 expected ERA, but a roughly 5 FIP, a roughly 7 walks per 9. I don't give a flying you know what that he's striking out guys at over a 10K per 9 rate. That means absolutely nothing when you're walking everyone and your mother and giving up hard contact the way that you do when you give up, of course, bombs the way you do every now and then, Mr. Diekman, or just having 0 command for the strike zone the way he certainly did not have command today. Jake Diekman now jumps up to a 4.73 ERA on the season. The walks continue to be a major issue for him. Diekman, who again has now already walked a total of 21 batters this season, and get ready for this, folks, and 27.1, and pardon me, not even 27.1 innings, 26.2 innings, because he only had 1 out today. Yes, you heard that correctly. Jake Diekman has walked 22 batters and 26.2 innings pitched. There is nothing, nada, to justify this man, this veteran southpaw, still being in this bullpen. He has had some luck on his side. He's also had some bad luck because the expected ERA was better. But after a day like today, where all you needed was 1 simple out from the Mets here, they were not able to get it. And for that, it's frustrating to say the least. And Jake Diekman, sayonara, brother. I cannot wait to see you out of here at this rate. Whether that is tomorrow or in the ensuing days, or if that isn't going to be for a little bit still because of how depleted this bullpen is. Whenever it's going to happen, it should be happening, because again, he is a walking problem in this Mets bullpen at the moment. Exactly. Daniel in the chat says, why is he on this team? 5 is being generous as well. 4 runs over 5.2 is what a 6.5 ERA. That's not 7.5. That's not 6.5. It's 5 at best. And Scott, that's the beauty of us having our own opinions. Scott, you view it as, okay, he still gave up 4 runs, so it doesn't matter how good he was up until he gave up the 4 runs, versus me, who's looking to see improvement from a young rookie starter. I care a lot about what he did prior to that 6th inning, and we should not just discredit that because he had a bad end to the game. If we saw Christian Scott start the game with a bad first inning and then say dominate for the next 5, I think Mets fans would have a certain way and say, okay, he really handled his own, settled down well, and deserves credit for that, and really showed a mental toughness. Scott worked out jams today, just couldn't work out of that one before giving up that long ball, and that's what I have to say about that. Ty Adcock as well to give up that home run to Garcia too, something him and Scott have in common, but Adcock, again, that lively fastball, that slider, I do like what Ty Adcock brings to the table. Unfortunately for us sake, Luis Garcia, who I do have on one of my So Rare MLB teams, I didn't play today. Shame on me for that. And that is what I get for doing exactly that. Ty Adcock gives up the bomb, and the Mets again lose by a final score of 7-5. I will not forget the prospect report, but I thank you so much, Steven, for reminding me in the chat. Thank you kindly for that. Speaking of which, I actually do want to double check right now here to make sure that I don't miss any key notes that I want to share with you all today. Because again, we saw there Christian Scott. Again, we talked about everything on that front. Want to make sure that we don't miss anything here as well. Just to make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't believe I did. Okay. Oh, final thing. Nope. Okay, we're good. Everything's cut up. So, let's hop into the heading, everybody. Then we're going to talk about our amazing sponsor at BetUS, and we'll get into the slated games tomorrow and what you guys should be tailing for my respective sports bettors out there that make sure you bet responsibly with our great friends at BetUS. But before I do that, and before I get into the pitching report, and again, Scott, appreciate you, brother. That's the fun thing about it. Again, we can have normal discourse even if we completely disagree, and that's why I certainly enjoy these kind of conversations. But to hop in now on the heading end, again, it sucks. The Mets score 5 runs. They don't win today. It's a brutal one for sure. Normally, when you have Luis Torrens and McGamble in your starting lineup, I don't like it as much as I do Harrison Bader and Francisco Alvarez, but I understood the case for both. Torrens hasn't been swinging the bat bad. We know he went 0 for 4 today, but he's been fine handling his own otherwise. And in the case of Bader, he's banged up, so I understood it. And what I also understood is that for this Mets team that averaged 6.5 runs in the month of June, a full run higher than the next closest team in Major League Baseball, they've continued to showcase that offense. So again, these runs are not the issue for this Mets team. And that's why I'm still encouraged overall with what we're getting from them. I'm just obviously more and more increasingly concerned on the pitching end, what's been going on with this Mets team. But Francisco Lindor, 1 for 4 today with the home run, the 2 RBIs, 249 average, 764 OPS on the season. Brandon Nimmo, 0 for 3 with a walk, 248 average, 818 OPS. JD Martinez, 1 for 4 with that double that we saw and a run scored at 277 average and 851 OPS. Pete Alonso was nowhere to be found along with Brandon, 0 for 4 today, 244 average, 801 OPS. Mark Vientos, 1 for 4 with a run scored thanks to that home run and the 2 RBIs. Marky V with a 297 average and a 931 OPS. Mark Vientos is taking the league by storm. And if you're not locked in, if you're not starting to believe now, you might never, as Mark Vientos is here to stay, baby. And thank God he is our third baseman. Luis Torrens, 0 for 4, batting 6th at the catching spot. We see a 270 average, 893 OPS. We see Tyrone Taylor, 1 for 3 with the home run. That stayed fair, 225 average, 650 OPS. Jose Iglesias, 0 for 3. 346 average, 882 OPS. Oh my God, that average actually dropped below 400. Ben Gamel, 1 for 2 with the double that we saw there, and a strikeout, 333 average, over 1,000 OPS. Francisco Alvarez pinch hitting for Gamel later in this ballgame, 0 for 1, lined out to right, 298 average, 871 OPS. And Jeff McNeil came in for a defensive replacement in right field, but did not get the start there, and he did not have an at-bat. 213 average, 572 OPS. That is what you're getting from the Metsies on the offensive end. And for the Mets here, as they head into their series finale tomorrow, they just got to get up early and often. We just got to hope that we get some length from our starter. Getting up early and often also holds true here with us when it comes to watching said ball game, because the Mets ball game tomorrow begins at 11:05 a.m. Eastern this 4th of July, because the Mets and baseball said, we want you to get out. We want you to enjoy the day with your families this summer. We want you to go out and eat those glizzies, eat those hamburgers, have yourself a nice 4th of July, and I'm certainly going to do that tomorrow evening. But before we get there, we got an early ball game to discuss. My ass is going to roll out of bed after probably just a couple hours of sleep, depending on how good or bad my newborn son Shay is going to be. I don't mean bad in the sense of like, oh no, he's a problem. I just mean how awake or sleepy is he going to be throughout the night. It's obviously fluctuate a lot right now. We're currently in the spot of him cluster feeding at the moment too. For my fathers out there, you know. So I don't know how exhausted I'm going to be tomorrow. We'll soon find out for this early game, but we are going to be covering it as we always do. And Jose Quintana is matching up against Jake Irvin. I'm not going to lie, this pitching matchup is far from favorable. Jake Irvin has been absolute nails for the Nationals this year, a 3.03 ERA with a just over 1 whip. Of course, Jose Quintana is a guy that we expect to see out of this rotation sooner rather than later. But in the case here of this pitching matchup, it's very favorable here for the Nationals. But for the Mets, again, even if it takes waiting until after Jake Irvin is out of this ball game, work his counts, get him up there in the pitch count, get him out of the ball game by the 5th inning, if not, hopefully 5.2 at absolute worst. You want to pounce on this guy. It's encouraging to see them face a right-hander in this case here, because the Mets did not fare well against guys like Mackenzie Gore and Hirsch until they were pulled out of the ball game. So a right-hander that the Mets have faced, a decent amount, I think they will have some amount of success with, but Jose Quintana, we have no clue where we're going to get from Jose tomorrow. So all the more reason why we need Jose Quintana to hopefully give us, God willing, 5-6 strong innings, and the bullpen can take it from there. But Mets bullpen, again, don't be surprised if it hurts them once again tomorrow. We just got to have fingers crossed this offense prevails enough, and this pitching depth, the Jose Quintana as a starter, can give the Mets the length that they desperately need. Because as Wardy said in the chat right now, yes, you're right. This bullpen, whether we like it or not, is absolutely disgusting. We're hitting like animals, but damn, I know we are. Our offense has been electric. Again, we can sit here and complain about a lot of stuff, but the offense is far from one of them. And that's awesome, because usually it's the script is flipped. But the problem is, when you have offense, you don't have pitching. When you have pitching, you don't have offense. We can never have everything in unison. Let's see. Do y'all know Scott was throwing in AAA? Of course. I know. Do you know? I guess that's a question for other people in the chat. Pete with runners in scoring position this season. I don't know what he's batting currently off the top of the dome. But what I do know, everybody, is that we do have to transition into our nightly prospect report before we wrap up tonight's show. So let's do exactly that. And this is going to be a two-parter. First, I'm going to tell you guys the key takeaways on the prospect end from yesterday's slate of games, because I didn't get a chance to with my man James Shiano, because we just broke down everything that transpired in regards to the top 6 Mets prospects and the top 100 for MLB Pipeline rankings, which is awesome, and specifically highlighting Brandon Sproat and his impact that he has had thus far in the minor leagues, and he has been a flamethrower to say the least. But the key takeaways of yesterday on the prospect end in AAA: Luis Angel Cunha went 2 for 4 with a stolen bag. Brett Beatty was 2 for 5 with a double and an RBI. Joe Hudson was 2 for 3 with the home run. And AA, Alex Ramirez with a big day, 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs, a double and a walk. Stanley Consuerga was 2 for 5 with an RBI. And my man Ryan Clifford, who I joke as our own Kyle Schwarber in the minors, 1 for 4 with an RBI and a walk, and you'll understand why I say that when you look at his numbers here in a minute. And high A, Jonah Ton with another beautiful outing. Ton, who struck out 11 his last time out there, I believe, this time goes 5 scoreless innings with 7 strikeouts. Ben Simon, 3 scoreless innings with 3 strikeouts. And then we see in low A, Colin Houck goes 2 for 3, Mets top prospect from a year ago, top draft pick rather, 2 for 3 with a walk and an RBI. And then we see in the FCL as well for Port St. Lucie, Jeremy Rodriguez there, 2 for 4 with a run scored. So that is what transpired yesterday out of all the key performances on the Mets prospect end. So let's take a look now on the Mets prospect end today and see how these guys did. And we're going to start here with a Syracuse Mets box score and then go from there, everybody. Again, everybody watching live on a replay, make sure to smash the like and subscribe on as we break down the latest in Mets land, as the Metsies went on to, in fact, yes, they have won hopefully the series tomorrow, but they lost this one today by a final score of 7-5. I got tongue-tied there. It's been a long day on my end too, especially with the other BR shows I had today. So I apologize if I'm a little not as animated as I usually am. Plus, it's a deflating loss too, so that goes in hand. God forbid the Mets can stay afloat above 500 for more than a day, right? It has yet to happen. But the Metsies there with the Syracuse Mets won 8-6. Luis Angel Cunha won a whopping 0-for-5 today. Brett Beatty won 2-for-4 that we saw with 2 runs scored. And then we saw Mr. Pablo Reyes, again, not a prospect, not even going to headline him. We saw, not a whole lot on the prospect and nothing really notable of guys that you want to stand out there outside of Beatty. And on the pitching end, we saw Seth Jarvis go 3 innings of 2 earned run ball. Max Kranick went 2.2 innings of 2 earned run ball. Definitely doesn't help his chances trying to come in his Mets bullpen in the near future. Bryce Montes Dioca in his first outing in Syracuse after being moved up in his rehab assignment did give up 2 earned runs, did not have any walks and a pair of strikeouts, 2 hits that he allowed. 0.2 innings pitched by Bryce Montes Dioca, who's still ramping up. Of course, flamethrowing right-hander that I am certain will impact this Mets bullpen at some point this season. Josh Walker, who I'm definitely an advocate to be called up with a 1.5 ERA in Syracuse this year, 1.2 scoreless innings, including a pair of walks, but no hits, no earned runs, no strikeouts for Josh Walker. So that is what we got there from the Syracuse Mets. Now let's take a look at the Rumble Ponies and what transpired there for the Metsies. For the Rumble Ponies, they lost a high-flying, high-scoring day by a final score of 12-9 in extras. And for the Rumble Ponies today, we saw Ryan Clifford go 2-for-5 today with 3 runs scored. Then we saw JT Schwartz at first base go 3-for-5 with 2 runs scored and 2 RBIs. Kevin Parada went 1-for-4 with an RBI and a run scored. Parada hit his 8th home run of the season that we saw there. Love to see it. On the offensive end, continuing this, we saw Jalen Palmer, of course, New York native, 3-for-4 and said matchup in the outfield. And on the pitching end, nothing really that needs to be noted of. That's all she wrote there between the two teams. So now let's head into checking out the the Cyclones box score, where we, of course, saw Kodai Senga go 2.2 scoreless. Beautiful innings of work today for the Metsies. So hopping into the Cyclones now before we wrap up this discussion here. And again, thank you all so much for hitting that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. For the Cyclones, Nick Morabito, awesome outfield prospect, 288 average, 737 OPS on the year, 1-for-4 with a run scored today. Jesus Baez at shortstop, 1-for-2 with an RBI for Baez today that we saw there. On the offensive end, nothing else that really sticks out. So let's check on the pitching end. Senga, of course, was very strong. And then afterwards, we saw Morris come in and pitch 6.1 innings of 0 earned run ball. Allowed 4 walks, struck out 7, gave up 4 hits. Very, very impressive stuff that we saw from Caden Mortis, the 22-year-old who was drafted just last year in the 3rd round by the Mets, has a 3.76 ERA and 76 innings so far for the Brooklyn Cyclones this year. An arm definitely to follow as he continues to ramp up in the minor leagues. Awesome stuff there for a guy that was just drafted last year, eating those innings as well as he did for Kodai Senga today. Very encouraged to see that. Now let's wrap this one up with the St. Lucie Mets and see what they have to do here. PSL Mets box score. Now let's wrap this one up. And again, thank you all so much for chiming in, as the Mets unfortunately lost this one. Heartbreaking fashion where they were up again 5 runs. I'm out. Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much, Steve. Have a great one. I'd love to see someone like JD talk to Pete. I'm sure he has been talking to him, but sometimes talking only does so much. Same way the Port St. Lucie Mets only did so much as they lost today 7-1. And yeah, not a whole lot to show, a whole lot of nothing. For sure. Yep, that's all she wrote. Not even going to acknowledge it. 7-1, nothing on the offense. They only had 5 hits. So that is going to do it, everybody. Thank you all so much for taking the time again today. We will be back live early tomorrow. Early post-game segment. Probably will be around, if I had to guess, 1:30, 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So again, early show. Be on the lookout. We'll be live right after tomorrow's game, and then we will be live with huge coverage for the Paul Skeens matchup this Friday. Okay? Trust me, Mets fans, there is more to follow than Levy Dunn, as funny as it is to say, obviously, for everyone that follows along with that LSU relationship between the two. You, of course, have the famous cheerleader, and then you have the famous flame-throwing top draft pick from a year ago that's going to probably light up the lamp like never before against this Mets team. So, Mets didn't fare well against Jared Jones last time they faced him. They faced him again this weekend. Mitch Keller gives me PTSD from when he drilled Sterling Marte in 2022 in the second half of the season. I need this Mets team to come out big because normally, knocking on wood, bad things tend to happen in Pittsburgh for the Mets in the summer. So let's see how they do. Big series starting this Friday. But before we get there, we need that damn series victory. So Jose Quintana, I don't give a rat's ass. If you have your arm fall off after this one, cue the sarcasm. Give us 6 strong innings tomorrow. Keep us in the ball game. And offense, just make sure Jake Irvin looks like a guy that actually you can hit up against and not have him look like Cy Young for 5, 6, 7 innings. Okay? That's all I ask. Everybody, thank you so much. I'll see you all again live tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And this is your boy Wardy signing out. When you get the time, can you answer my question? I'll try to answer it briefly for you, Anthony. With Ronnie Mauricio, Acuna, and Vientos, where are they all going to play next year? Well, barring any trades, obviously, you're going to have Vientos at the hot corner, playing time there. NDH honestly goes in hand with the future of Alonso, too, so that's a toss-up. Mauricio, obviously, is looking like a favorite there at the second base and DH position. And Acuna is a guy that you can consider in said positions, but again, get creative on it. Mets, we're still premature before we have answers there, so be on the lookout. We will talk about them more throughout the stretch of the season. Have a great one, folks, and as always, let's go Mets, baby.